her taking credit for other people's work. She wasn't actually invited by anyone.
This was the moment, the major defeat on her face when she realized that no one had bothered to show up for what was a catastrophic speech.
For years, Meghan Markle has built an image around speaking on major social issues, especially topics tied to mental health, digital culture, and online responsibility. But after her latest appearance in Geneva, the conversation suddenly shifted in a way nobody expected. Instead of people focusing only on her message, critics online started asking a much more uncomfortable question. Were those ideas actually original?
Another day, another Meghan Markle PR stunt that backfired for using plagiarized speech.
The attention exploded after Meghan appeared at the Lost Screen Memorial event in Geneva, where she delivered a speech about the dangers connected to modern technology and online platforms. Her message focused on how digital systems, powerful algorithms, and artificial intelligence can influence young people in harmful ways. It was clearly meant to sound urgent and emotional. But within hours, social media users and commentators started comparing parts of her speech to arguments that had already been published by other public voices. One comparison quickly became the center of the debate.
She plagiarized that speech from Dr. Dana Suskind.
Critics pointed toward comments made by Dr. Dana Suskind in a recent article discussing the pressure placed on parents in the digital age. In that piece, Suskind argued that families should not be expected to handle every technology risk on their own. She used examples involving safety products and protections that society normally expects companies and institutions to provide. Around that same time, Meghan was making similar points in Geneva, saying society would never expect families to create safety systems by themselves or accept dangerous products as the cost of innovation.
Tell parents to create their own seatbelts. We did not ask children to test unsafe medicine. We did not shrug at poisoned water or defective toys and call it the price of progress.
Now, to be fair, the statements were not exact copies. The wording was different, and there was no direct evidence of plagiarism. But critics argued that the overlap in themes, comparisons, and messaging felt too close for comfort. Both discussions used safety analogies. Both pushed the idea that responsibility should fall more heavily on large institutions and technology companies. And both framed innovation as something that should be controlled before harm happens, not after. That similarity alone was enough to send online discussions into overdrive. But the controversy didn't stop there. As the debate over originality gained attention, another accusation suddenly entered the conversation.
It was pretty messed up. And let me tell you why. Because she wasn't actually invited by anyone. She went to appear with the WHO, World Health Organization, but the event was WHO and Archwell Philanthropies.
This time, critics were not claiming the speech borrowed from another writer. Instead, some people online began suggesting that parts of the speech sounded like they may have been heavily assisted by artificial intelligence tools. According to reports and online reactions, critics pointed to what they described as overly polished wording, repetitive sentence patterns, and carefully balanced emotional phrasing. Some argued that the structure sounded extremely calculated, almost like language generated to maximize emotional impact. Phrases such as, "People are not products, they are not experiments," and references to relentless algorithms and endless exposure became examples frequently repeated by critics discussing the speech online. Of course, none of that proves AI was actually used.
Relentless algorithms, exploitative engagement, and endless exposure to harmful content that they are not seeking out.
I guess 4-year-old Lily didn't seek out her starring role in selling Meghan's outfit either.
Plenty of professional speeches rely on dramatic repetition and carefully crafted wording. Still, the speculation added even more attention to an event that was originally supposed to highlight concerns about technology and online safety. Instead, the internet turned the spotlight directly back onto the speech itself, and the backlash spread fast. The real issue for Meghan Markle wasn't just the online claims about artificial intelligence helping shape the speech. What really made the situation explode was the timing behind it all.
I think that it's time for people to put their foot down, because this is just going to continue. This is just going to keep escalating.
This wasn't some casual tech panel or flashy business event. It wasn't a Hollywood interview or a product launch packed with influencers and executives. The event focused on families speaking out about the serious impact online platforms and digital spaces can have on young people. That emotional setting is exactly why the backlash hit so hard. According to people following the event, Meghan's speech was delivered with a very emotional tone. She talked about algorithms, harmful online environments, and the pressure many families feel as technology becomes more powerful every year.
Wants to protect children, it is a good cause. But I think it's a little ironic to have Meghan Markle come speak at an event for bullying when she's one of the biggest bullies, in my opinion. It's like having Bernie Madoff go speak at a convention on finance.
The message was designed to sound urgent and deeply personal, but almost immediately online observers began picking apart the delivery itself instead of only discussing the topic. Many critics claimed the speech sounded too perfect. Every line appeared carefully polished. Every emotional pause landed at exactly the right moment. The structure felt extremely controlled, almost like every sentence had been optimized for maximum impact. That alone sparked a wave of speculation online, and that's where the irony became impossible for critics to ignore.
But there's just one moment at the end, and I want you to watch closely here. She's touching her nose. And I don't know what it's about. I've got some idea of what it's about. And I just want you to watch closely. Let's just give her the benefit of the doubt and think she's trying to do the one tear left eye. She's trying to get some emotion.
We want our children to be safe. Let our children look back.
Meghan has publicly warned about the growing influence of artificial intelligence and the risks tied to modern technology. So when people started questioning whether AI tools may have helped shape parts of the speech, the internet immediately latched onto the contradiction. Critics online were essentially asking, how can someone warn about AI influence while sounding like their own speech may have been shaped by the very thing they're criticizing? That question spread fast across social media and commentary channels. Then people started examining the content itself more closely. Critics pointed out that the speech did not introduce groundbreaking research, major policy changes, or a brand new initiative. Instead, they argued much of the message relied on themes and arguments the public had already heard many times before. Discussions about corporate responsibility, online harm, digital safety, and platform accountability are already major topics in public debate.
So she basically created this event just to show up, give a speech at an art installation, BT dubs, that was already there. She wasn't actually invited by anyone.
Because of that, some critics claimed the speech felt more like a polished collection of familiar talking points rather than something completely original. That's also why comparisons to Dr. Dana Suskind suddenly gained even more attention. For critics, the question shifted from, was AI involved, to something much bigger. Where were these ideas actually coming from? Some online users accused Meghan of recycling arguments and concepts that were already circulating in public discussions. Others defended her, arguing that major public issues naturally involve overlapping ideas and similar language. Still, the conversation kept growing louder.
Speaking at an event for bullying. She's the bully. She's literally the biggest bully. You can even see her face sometimes when she has to interact with someone who's poor. She's like disgusted. She looks disgusted having to hug people who don't live in massive mansions in Montecito like her. She seems absolutely disgusted.
And for many critics, this situation didn't feel isolated. Over the years, Meghan has repeatedly faced public accusations about borrowing styles, branding approaches, messaging strategies, and public relations language from trends already popular online. Fairly or unfairly, those debates have followed her public image for a long time. Because of that history, many people viewed the Geneva speech through a much wider lens instead of judging it as one standalone moment. For critics, the entire debate became centered around one word: authenticity. In today's media world, audiences are extremely sensitive to anything that feels overly calculated or artificial. People can forgive mistakes much faster than they forgive something that feels staged or overly managed. And that's exactly the challenge Meghan suddenly found herself facing in Geneva.
And by the way, it's not about you, Meghan, right? But she makes it all about herself. And she also does things that she doesn't understand why people think she's a hypocrite.
The more she spoke about authenticity and online responsibility, the more critics questioned whether her own message felt authentic. The more she warned about artificial intelligence, the more online discussions focused on whether artificial intelligence may have influenced the speech itself. And as that conversation kept building, one uncomfortable question continued spreading online louder and louder. If these ideas weren't completely original, then where did they really come from? If the AI debate already created pressure for Meghan Markle, what happened next pushed the controversy even further. At first, people online were mainly focused on the speech itself, how it sounded, who may have inspired it, and whether parts of it felt overly polished.
Here's Jacket Lady. Look at her. She looks riveted, doesn't she? She's like, I'm near a princess.
Oh, boy.
No, she couldn't care less. She's not interested. And it's the public's verdict on we don't give a shit about you. Shut up and go live your life and stop bothering us with your fake profundities and fake title.
But then the conversation suddenly shifted in a completely different direction. Critics stopped asking how the speech was written and started asking whether Meghan was the right person to deliver that message at all. The Geneva event focused heavily on online safety, digital risks, and the responsibility adults have when it comes to protecting younger generations in modern online spaces. It was presented as a serious discussion about technology, social media pressure, and harmful online environments. But only hours after the event, critics online began pointing towards something Meghan herself had previously shared publicly, a carefully selected family photo that included Princess Lilibet of Sussex. And that's when the internet debate exploded again. For years, Meghan and Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, have openly discussed privacy, media attention, and the pressures that come with public life.
She traveled to Geneva, Switzerland, to give some speech about the dangers of social media. She posted on social media before she went a picture of herself surrounded by designer clothing and Lilibet.
They've repeatedly spoken about protecting family life from excessive exposure and controlling how personal moments are shared with the public. That message has become one of the biggest parts of their post-royal public identity. So critics immediately noticed what they viewed as a contradiction. Some online users questioned why someone would speak so passionately about the risks of online exposure while also choosing to share curated family images with millions of followers. Supporters pushed back, arguing there is a major difference between controlled personal sharing and aggressive media intrusion. But critics claimed the contrast still raised uncomfortable questions about consistency in messaging.
It's obviously ludicrous. The whole thing is ridiculous. And she's got to start realizing that her own actions are clashing.
And then attention shifted once again, this time toward the event itself. People online didn't just analyze the speech or the audience reaction, they also started questioning the larger organizations and public figures connected to the event. Critics began examining who supported the conference, who appeared alongside Meghan, and what broader message the event was really trying to send. At the center of many discussions was Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, the Director General of the World Health Organization. Supporters praise him for his role in global public health efforts and international cooperation. Critics, however, have questioned aspects of the organization's communication, transparency, and political influence over the years.
The speech began with Meghan standing in front of that lost screen memorial, with virtually no one behind her apart from those few passers-by, and she began by thanking Dr. Tedros.
Thank you for being here this evening. And thank you, Dr. Tedros, not simply for your leadership at the World Health Organization, but for your clarity.
And now Dr. Tedros has posted today that he presented Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex.
Online discussions around his name have often become highly divided and emotionally charged. That's exactly why the Geneva appearance became such a lightning rod online. For some people, the event looked less like a neutral public discussion and more like a carefully managed media moment involving two globally recognized public figures, both carrying years of public scrutiny and controversy. Critics argued the focus seemed heavily centered on image, messaging, and optics instead of concrete solutions. And once that narrative started spreading, more questions followed. Why this event? Why this specific platform? And why now? Online commentators began dissecting every detail connected to the appearance. In today's internet culture, every public partnership becomes part of a larger narrative. Every photograph gets analyzed. Every interaction gets turned into evidence for one side or another. That level of scrutiny only intensified the attention around Geneva. But one of the biggest talking points wasn't even about what happened on stage. It was about who wasn't standing there.
And yet, she's still not featured in the World Health Organization website the way she wants to, because of course Dr. Tedros is a narcissist himself.
While Meghan attended the Lost Screen Memorial event alone, Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, was noticeably absent. There was no joint appearance, no shared stage moment, and no public image of the couple together at the event. For many people, that stood out immediately because public unity has long been a major part of how the couple presents themselves. And online commentators wasted no time turning that absence into speculation. In the world of internet discussion, people often treat silence or absence as meaningful, even when there may be perfectly ordinary explanations behind it. Some critics interpreted Harry's absence as another sign that the couple may be moving toward more separate public roles and individual projects.
Okay, we sped it up just so you can see. Like, literally nobody is on the side. They have all the ropes up to protect her from crowds coming. There's one woman in the background. No one is there.
This time she seemed to be flying solo. I guess she left Prince Harry at home. He's probably so happy to have the house to himself.
Others argued people were reading far too deeply into a routine scheduling decision. Still, once speculation starts online, it spreads fast. What may have been intended as a focused conversation about technology and online safety quickly transformed into something much larger. A non-stop debate about authenticity, public image, media strategy, and the growing gap between carefully managed messaging and public perception. And the more attention the event received, the more complicated that conversation became. Some commentators took things even further when discussing Meghan Markle, suggesting that her increasingly separate public appearances alongside Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, signal a shift in how both are managing their public lives. Instead of always appearing as a unified pair, some observers claim they now seem to be building more independent identities, each focusing on different causes and audiences.
They actually were contacted by Meghan and Harry years ago when they actually had Archwell Foundation, and then ghosted Fair Play, and then just takes credit for all their work.
Other voices online pushed more dramatic interpretations, speculating about possible tension behind the scenes. Though it's important to note there is no verified evidence supporting those claims. Still, in today's attention-driven media landscape, rumors don't need confirmation to spread. They only need contrast, timing, and a compelling visual moment. And Geneva had exactly that. One partner delivering a serious public message about online safety and digital harm, and the other noticeably absent from the frame. That contrast alone became enough for online discussion to spiral into speculation about meaning, intention, and even relationship dynamics. Whether that absence actually signals anything meaningful is impossible to confirm from the outside.
When you're a real member of the royal family like Princess Catherine and William and King Charles, Camilla, oh, the streets are packed. It's like Michael Jackson came to town. People are throwing roses. Remember Catherine, they had the baby. They're like, please kiss my baby. In Italy, they're like, Reggio Emilia, kiss my baby. So Catherine is over there in Italy, like getting a Princess Diana level reception. Meghan Markle shows up, it's crickets.
But in modern celebrity coverage, silence or absence often becomes part of the narrative itself, and sometimes even louder than what is said on stage. In the hours following the Geneva event, attention online quickly moved away from the speech itself. Instead, a new talking point began dominating discussions: the crowd size, or what critics described as a lack of visible audience presence. Across social platforms, clips and screenshots from the event were repeatedly shared. Critics focused on the physical setting, arguing that the turnout looked small compared to the seriousness of the topic being discussed. The visual impression of the venue became the main point of debate, sometimes overshadowing the actual message of the speech. Some users pointed to background movement, open seating areas, and public access elements of the venue as signs that the event did not draw strong in-person engagement. For critics, this was framed as a symbolic mismatch between the emotional weight of the topic and the apparent level of attendance. However, discussion didn't stop there.
She tried to compare herself to Catherine. She announced it many days prior because she thought there was going to be a lot of public, and the Sussex squad is turning it around and say it's for her own safety that they didn't allow people. You wouldn't be able to stop crowds from coming from the other sides, you know. Instead, this was a very quickly put thing just for her to have something to do to copy Catherine.
Another recurring argument centered around audience reaction, or what some claimed was the lack of visible emotional response from those present. This particular claim isn't new for viewers of commentary channels like Hollywood Yesterday, where similar points have been raised before in earlier breakdowns and discussions. It has become part of a wider pattern of online analysis where audience behavior is scrutinized as closely as the speech itself. In the comment sections, a more specific narrative began forming. Some users repeatedly suggested that public attention around Meghan Markle was significantly lower compared to other high-profile royal-related events happening in Europe around the same period. One talking point that circulated online was the idea that audiences were more engaged with appearances involving Catherine, Princess of Wales, with claims about larger crowds, stronger media presence, and more traditional ceremonial appeal. On one side, critics described the Geneva event as tightly controlled and emotionally serious, but visually understated in terms of public turnout. On the other side, supporters of other royal engagements highlighted events involving Catherine as having more visible public enthusiasm, larger crowds, and a more classic royal atmosphere.
This was the moment, the major defeat on her face when she realized that no one had bothered to show up for what was a catastrophic speech, a hypocritical speech, a speech which blows out of the water every single thing that she has argued in terms of her brand.
The comparison quickly turned into a broader online attention divide narrative rather than a straightforward event analysis. For some critics, however, the central issue with the Geneva appearance went beyond crowd size or comparisons altogether. They argued the deeper concern wasn't what was said, but how it felt. The speech didn't come across as openly fake or emotionless. Instead, critics described it as something more subtle, overly structured, highly refined, and carefully shaped in tone. Not robotic, not cold, but engineered. The event itself dealt with deeply emotional themes: grieving families, online exploitation, and the real-world impact of digital harm. It was meant to be a human-centered moment focused on serious social issues. But some observers claimed the delivery felt less like spontaneous emotion and more like a carefully constructed public message. They used phrases like corporate empathy to describe it, referring to polished, media-trained language often associated with large institutions, advocacy groups, and professional communication teams.
Meghan Markle hasn't caught on to the fact no one cares anymore. Why would the people in Geneva, Switzerland, on their weekend, on their days off from work, want to go hear you speak about bullying?
And whether that criticism is fair or not, it highlights a bigger challenge that Meghan Markle now faces in public appearances. People no longer just listen to the message. They dissect the delivery, the tone, the phrasing, the pauses. Even the smallest shifts in body language become part of the interpretation. The framing, the camera angles, even the facial expressions caught on screen. For many viewers, Meghan Markle has slowly shifted from being seen as a traditional public figure into something very different. A constant online debate that never really settles. And Geneva may have made that reality more visible than ever.
She wrote at the very last minute, she bombarded the World Health Organization guy, the director general, to get her to come there. And she told him that Harry was coming because people don't understand that Harry's the one who was championing this, not Meghan Markle. Just like Harry was the one championing Invictus Games. It was his initiative. He was the one that was associated to this.
Because right after clips from the speech started circulating online, the focus shifted almost instantly. Instead of people discussing online child safety or digital responsibility, the conversation began circling back to the same familiar target, Meghan herself. Not the policy, not the families, not the broader issue. Meghan. Supporters highlighted her effort to bring attention to serious concerns about online harm and the impact of technology on vulnerable groups. Critics, however, argued she was turning deeply sensitive issues into personal branding opportunities. And in the middle of that clash, the actual subject of the event started to fade behind layers of online noise and commentary. That tension reflects one of the most unusual aspects of Meghan's public presence in 2026. No matter what topic she addresses, the discussion eventually returns to one central question. Is it genuine? Because for a growing...
By the way, we hate these social media companies except for when I make money from them.
No matter what topic she addresses, the discussion eventually returns to one central question. Is it genuine? Because for a growing group of online critics, Meghan is no longer viewed simply as a humanitarian voice stepping into global discussions. Instead, she has become a symbol, something people attach broader frustrations and interpretations to: celebrity activism, elite influence, media narratives, royal history, public relations strategy, privilege. Once a public figure becomes symbolic in that way, every appearance stops being just an event. It becomes a debate, a performance, and for some, even a battleground of interpretation. And Geneva was no exception.
Being hypocritical, because I mean, this is a woman who's speaking to parents who have lost their children to dangers of on social media, while she is parading her kids everywhere.
In fact, some critics argued that the setting itself intensified the perception gap. The polished conference environment, the security presence, the controlled visuals, the international institutional backdrop, all of it created a highly curated atmosphere around a speech focused on vulnerable children and families affected by online harm. To supporters, the setting reflected professionalism and global importance, a serious platform for a serious issue. But to critics, it looked like another example of elite presentation layered over emotionally sensitive subject matter, creating a disconnect between message and image. That contrast quickly became a major talking point online, and it didn't exist in isolation. For years, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, have remained in a constant cycle of public engagement.
And this is again another example of Meghan trying to cosplay Diana. Very obviously. But she's done nothing for our health. Actually, she's probably been very bad for our mental health around the world, if we're honest, because she just annoys us all so much.
Interviews, documentaries, speeches, podcasts, and global initiatives. With that level of visibility, every appearance becomes part of a larger ongoing narrative rather than a single moment in time. And that's where things get more complicated. Because when audiences repeatedly encounter similar debates around messaging, image, and interpretation, a pattern begins to form. Critics argue that over time, attention shifts away from individual issues and starts focusing more on perception itself. That's why terms like plagiarism, authenticity, and image management keep resurfacing in these discussions. It's not always about one speech or one event. It's about how each moment gets absorbed into a longer cycle of public interpretation. And Geneva fit directly into that cycle.
She was assigned to a bus stop. Look at that. Look at in the red circle. So actually, the woman who everyone's saying is there to watch was actually just trying to get home. Meghan's mole pointed out that even the Sussex squaddies couldn't be bothered to go to Geneva to support Meghan.
By the end of the controversy, the discussion was no longer centered on online child safety or digital protection. Instead, it had expanded into something much broader. Questions about authenticity, media strategy, artificial intelligence influence, public trust, and celebrity relevance in modern culture. And underneath all of it was one lingering question that continued to follow the narrative. Can audiences still fully trust carefully constructed public personas in today's media world? And for Meghan Markle, that question has become one of the hardest to escape.